We're in Parak Asiri of Tomer Devorah. I want to say what we're going to learn, very fundamental, is to try to understand what it really means, what the Shechina is. I'll talk about the Shechina. The whole Beis Hamikdash is about the Shechina. The Tisha B'Av is about the lack of it. So seems to be pretty fun. The whole Eretz Yisrael, I think, is about Shechina. So we're all like into the Shechina. But what does it actually mean? Asuli Mikdash v'shachanti, besides the notion of Shechina. Seems to be pretty fundamental. Let me just remind you that I said a couple weeks ago, I explained that by Avram Avinu, Rashi says sometimes he called his guests Malachim and sometimes he called them Bnei Adam. And Rashi says Mefurish that when he saw the Shechina on them, Avram Avinu was able to see the Shechina on people. When he saw the Shechina on them, so he called them Bnei Adam. When he didn't see the Shechina, he called them Malachim. Counterintuitive. So I explained that the pshat is that we think Shechina means holiness. We think Shechina means Himmeldik, and Shechina means anything but Himmeldik. Himmeldik means Bashamayim, and Shechina means Ba'aretz. Shachanti b'soichem. Shechina Gufa, that's the word means. The word means that he's a Shachin. Shachin means he's here, not there. So if it's Malachim, not going to see any Shechina. Beautiful to see Malachim. But if it's, the minute that he saw them as Bnei Adam, just, wow, like some Bnei Adam these are, right? Because they had a Tchuna of Malachim, but they were here Ba'aretz. So then he saw the Shechina. It means he probably knew whether they were Malachim or whether they were Bnei Adam. If he knew so much, he probably knew that too. But at some moments they were working as Malachim, had no Shechina, and at some moments they were working as Bnei Adam, and then he did see the Shechina. So, I also mentioned verse this week, I think Eitan Yehuda was that you have this week's parsha also, Malachi Elikim Oilim V'Yardim Bay. Also, like a little bit counterintuitive because Malachi Elikim should be Yardim V'Olim. Malachim aren't Shemayim. They come down, they climb down the ladder. Then they go up the ladder, Beseder. But what's Oilim V'Yardim? The Seder is Havuch. But what he was seeing was the koyach of Bnei Adam. He wasn't seeing, what he was seeing, Ein Zakim Beis Elokim Zeshar Shemayim V'Anoichi Lo Yadati. Anoichi Lo Yadati. His Anoichi, the koach that he and for that matter we have, Lo Yadati, he didn't know that he has such a koach. Meaning what Yaakov Avinu was seeing, but this was such a, this dream was just the parsha, just make a point about the parsha, the dream that Yaakov had was such a seminal dream. It was such a seminal moment in the history of Klal Yisrael, because it wasn't, okay, Yaakov had a dream. Interesting, another Bible story. What this dream meant is that two things. A, there's a ladder, there's a connection between Shemayim v'Aretz. Of course, Kabbalistically, the Sulam are the spheroids. The Sulam appears on the Zohar, but but just simply, like there's a connection between Shemayim v'Aretz. Kadosh Baruch Hu is Nitzav on top of the ladder. Yaakov was down here, Ba'kesher. Shemayim, L'Hashem v'Aretz Nasan L'Bnei Adam. But there was a kesher. That's what that dream was all about. The dream was an absolute gilui to Yaakov Avinu that there's a kesher. Point one. Point two, that how does it work, this kesher? How does it work? The answer is that there's up, there's down. There's a connection. Doorway goes two ways. Right? There's coming down the ladder into the earth. So there's the hashpah from Shemayim La'aretz. And then there's another hashpa from Aretz to Shamayim. And suffice it to say that in the dream, the seminal dream of the history of Klal Yisrael, it was oilim v'yardim by. It was more important, if you will, or more effective in the Bria, more important what Yaakov was doing than what Hashem was doing. So again, you have the Milas Haaretz, if you will, like the Pshat in the Aretz, is that this is where it's happened. This is a happening place here. Shemayim, it's like let's say like the control pad, the keyboard is here, and everything else is in the cloud. So, but what's important over here? What's going on up there is just there to service us. Storage, koach, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Hakadosh Baruch Hu is malei kol haaretz kevoda. This is not a kasha. Isn't Hashem important? Hashem is here. Hashem is there. Hashem is everywhere. But the what's important is how the Bria works. That's what's important. And how the Bria works, the way Hashem created it, is that He put Yaakov and Klal Yisrael and Bnei Adam in charge of the controls. Doesn't mean all the controls. I don't know if we're controlling Jupiter. I don't know. But I don't know if we're controlling the Shemayim, but we're certainly controlling the Aretz. This gives us Bechir Chavshis a whole new dimension. Bechir Chavshis, it gives a whole new dimension to mitzvos. There are secrets that were handed to us from the Shemayim, going that way, on Har Sinai, and before that, in Nevuah. There are secrets which we know that can make these things, can make a difference in the entire Shemayim V'aretz. Like putting on tefillah can make a difference in everything. And Chazal underlined certain things, which was even though they said "Te mitzvah kala beinecha kechamura," because the pshat is you don't know what's going on this touchpad. You think it's a mitzvah kala. A mitzvah kala can delete a whole world. Mitzvah kala. I saw in, I believe, the Chassid Yavitz. You know who that was? That was one of the those that were expelled during the Spanish Inquisition and expulsion. Not the Yavitz or Rabbi Yaacov Haber, the Chassid Yavitz, really. He says, I believe, it says, "Te mitzvah kala beinecha kivachamura." He gives an example of a mitzvah kala. He says, "K'may sinas chinam." Just absorb that for a moment.
Just to be some age with this part.
What's a mitzvah kala? It's a chamura. So sinas chinam is a mitzvah kala. Dahainu, what does kala mean according to the way I understand him? That we're not really so makpid on that. Like that's for tzadikim. But if we're talking about what's going to have an effect in the Shemayim and what's going to affect the Aretz, we're talking about Malach Elokim Oilim V'Yardim by what you're evaporating up to the Shemayim and what's going to come down in the cloud, from the cloud into the world. So Tezoyer b'mitzvah kala b'kivachamur, like we're going to consider something like Sinas Chinam a mitzvah kala, but you should know. That says the Mishnah, the Tana, that there's nothing more created, like you say, Charbon Beis Hamikdash, Charbon Eretz Yisrael, Golus. There's nothing that's been, when you think about it, there is nothing that has been as damaging to the world, or to Klal Yisrael, than Ar Sinas Chinam and Eretz Yisrael. Nothing. Not Avodah Zarah, not Gilui Arayis, not Shvichas Damim, nothing. Those are the Chamuras. So here's the Vart. That in the Bayis, Rishon, what caused the Charbon Beis Hamikdash? Mitzvahs chamuras. Those are the mitzvahs chamuras, notoriously. In the Bayis Sheni, what called the cause of the Chorban Beis Hamikdash? Sinas Chinam. Te mitzvah kala beinecha kichamura. It means to Balamed, this is before Gemara, Sinas Chinam Shaveh kegimel mitzvahs chamuras. Chamuras, the lashon of the Gemara, the mitzvahs chamuras, the three biggies. So it's hafla v'fela, like the control that we have. That's the seminal message B from the dream of the ladder. One is that there's a connection, and two, that we're in control. This matzav that we have here in this world, we need to understand, we need to think about all the time. This is called Shechina. When there's the Beis HaMikdash, you have a real Hashras HaShechina. When there's no Beis HaMikdash, we'll talk about it. You have some Hashras HaShechina. Yechezkel HaNavi said, don't worry about the Beis HaMikdash that much. It's not the end of the world, because you still have Batei Knessiyos. Still shuls, not Batei Midrashos. It's Batei Knessiyos. So Batei Knessiyos is a Malka Miyuchad, so you have some Shechina here, which requires and demands an entire set of halachas. Simanim and Shulchan Aruch, Hilchos Beis HaKnesses, different than Beis HaMikdash, different than your house, different behavior. Halachically, it's different behavior. But what's Machayev, the whole Hilchos Beis HaKnesses? Shechina. And when you're not in when you're in Golus, Siluk HaShechina. Tsaros, Siluk HaShechina. Bracha, Shechina. Living in Eretz Yisrael, Shechina. Living in Golus, Siluk HaShechina. Much more difficult to... You're not having as much effect, let's say that. You're not having as much effect on the Bria in Chutz La'aretz as you have in Eretz Yisrael.
Even with a shul?
Yeah, because Eretz Yisrael has other things besides for the shul. It's a shul and Eretz Yisrael, Palter and Shamelech.
So it doesn't have, even if it brings the Shechina in Chutz La'aretz, it's not the same intensity?
You don't have double, you only have single mathematically. Yeah. But that's also intense, because we see a lot of places in Chazal that the shul is like a shtickle Eretz Yisrael. The Hasidim like to say that the Kivrei Tzadikim in Europe is not going out to Chutz La'aretz because that's Eretz Yisrael. Push. Push. I don't even know that there's a heter. You got to think about this. That it's not pashut that it's mutter to go to Chutz La'aretz at all. Gimel Dvarim Bilvad, the Gemara says, Parnasa, Torah, Lisa Isha. So you have to go for your work, Parnasa, so that's mutter. You have to find a shidduch, it's mutter. Yaakov, it's mutter to go to Chutz La'aretz to find a shidduch. Parnasa, Eretz Yisrael, Parnasa rather, Lisa Isha, Loma Torah. That's where your Rebbe is.
Simcha.
What's the heter? Health, what's the heter? What's the heter? It's not what it says. I was talking to an older Jew here, originally from America, a Chashav Rosh Yeshiva B'nai Brak. So he said to me, I live in Eretz Yisrael. He says, I came for a year. I learned in Brisk, quite a brisker Rav, old man. And then he went to the Chazon Ish for a bracha before he left, and he said he's leaving. So he said, what do you mean you're leaving? So I came for a year leaving. So he said, well, what's your heter? So Lisa Isha, Parnasa, what's your deal? So he didn't have an answer, so he never left. Some people take halacha seriously. Right. It's not so possible. What's the reason behind it? The reason behind it is that this is where the Makam Hashchin is. So I have to learn more about it. But that's the Lakuta that I want to talk about. It's not even Eretz Yisrael, but the Shechina. Ish v'isha Shechina shruya b'neihem. That a husband and wife have a certain type of a holy marriage. Shechina shruya b'neihem. Somehow that's also a way to bring the Shechina. That's amazing. And if you're not bringing the Shechina in this Ish v'isha, I maintain that the default status of marriage is tragedy. From a cynical point of view. No, I'm okay. but it's keneged ateva that two people should live together with the type of intimacy that's required in marriage without the siyata d'shmaya and the ezras hashchina. So it's like no kasha. Why? I think two males are easier than a male and a female. Women are very hard to live with. I'm gonna shut this off.
Too late.
For men. For men. You know, that's why that's why there's a new normal. You know, like people can't deal with it. How many people get married b'chlal? I mean, like, you know, if I could just have a kasher with a man or with a woman, like if there's no Torah, so you know, why get married? It's like what's like it's just you got to be either a Jew or a Christian or a nut. Well, I'm not against. I like marriage. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that it's not. It requires Shechina. It requires Siyata D'Shmai.
Someone once said the engagement ring, the wedding ring, and suffering.
Yeah. No, but I'm not. You know.
But I mean, is it
Yeah,
marriage?
exactly. Let me tell you what's. You know, like for men, women, you can't live with them, and you can't live with them. No, but of course, like the Shechina is Ba'isha, not Ba'ish. The Shechina is Bechinas Nukva. If we find it difficult, it's a chasar in us. The Shechina is a Bechina of Nukva. If you're taking Zachar and Nekeva, so now you're being born in the Shechina. That's the point of the whole thing. If you just stop not getting married, then what are you doing?
So if we're putting it on the table, that's Shechina in a non-Jewish marriage.
Look, Goyim have a different tachlis. And part of it is getting married. It's like part of the... Right. So, Shevas is Haaretz. And your Bonabatim. Like, there's an inyan of inhabiting the world and building homes in the world and good homes and keeping the Zionist, Noach, etc. So, for sure, that's like like you're building a business, you're building a home. It's I don't know if it's about Shechina. I tell you, I went. Did I tell you this? If I did, forgive me. But I come from Buffalo, New York, and then I returned to Buffalo as a rabbi. Lived there for 10 years and then went on. So when I was in America, not this year, last year. So I had to go to Buffalo. I went to my mother's kever in Buffalo, Aleh Shalom, and my son Yossi was with me. So he'd never been to Buffalo. He was born long after that. So, he was born 30 years after that. So I took him around and I showed him all the different places that I lived. You know, I have this muscle, like this is my 26th place of living. So I showed him all the different, places that we lived and where I showed him to the shul that I was the Rav of, and we'd have him there, and I had a kiruv center, and that moved to 3 different places. We went through all the places. So the last house, the final house, like my residence in Buffalo, so we went to look at it. It was a big old house, 120 years old when I bought it, so 150 years old. So, do you ever, in Depew? So, a nice house, nice house. And I'm showing him the house and the whole thing. And the lady from inside comes and she says, what do you look at? She thought I was like, going to raise the house, or I was an insurance thing, or the Jews are taking over. I don't know what she was thinking. So I said, no, I used to live in this house, and just showing my son the house. So she was very excited about it, non-Jew. And she said, oh, can you want to come in and take a look? So I said, yeah. So she took us through the house, and she ruined most of the great decorative items that I created, etc. But she takes me into I had a study there, and it was a nice study. It happened to be a nice study with a fireplace, and it was nice. So she said, "What did you do in this room? What was in this room? How did you use this room?" So I said, "Why?" So she said, "Because whenever there's any." I told her that this is the room usually where I met people, and I said to her that like many couples came into this room, and many people came to this room, and this, a lot of shalom bayis took place in this room. Happened to be. So she said because whenever there's any like stress in her house between her and her husband, the kids, everything else, they find that if they go into this room, everything just counts.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Nice to show you.
You should have brought that room here with you.
I did. No, just like the schus of helping. She was margish a Shechina in the room. She said they go in. She says, not that we light the fireplace that way. This just come into the room and and have a different
Shechina's
cook.
still there.
Hmm?
The Shechina's still there, get absorbed in the walls or something.
Kitchel shaitu, kitchel asad. I'm not saying a Chassidish advice is advice about me. I'm saying advice about what it means to do chesed, and to help people and to learn Torah. It's a Chanukas habayis. There's a certain chinuch that the house gets that we all have to put into our own homes and into our own buildings and Torah. But that's Kedushas Beis HaKnesses. It's chinuch. Chinuch means that you're shaping the thing, you're forming the thing. Baruchnius. That's what chinuch means. Chanukas habayis. Chanukas habayis of the Beis Hamikdash. A binyan needs a chanukah, needs a chinuch, and the chinuch is what you put into it, and what you just like a child, the way you form it, the way you build it. Begashmius and baruchnius. Okay, so all that.
So do a non-Jewish couple from World do they need to have like a marriage ceremony, or is it enough for them just to live together?
Is it a halachic question?
I mean, like
They have to have some kind of a deal.
For whatever
commitment.
they do to work.
A commitment.
Gilei is one of the...
Yeah, no, but yeah.
All the promises.
No, it's not Gilei Arayis.
Why
Why is it Gilei Arayis? You could take a woman and it's not Gilei Arayis.
No, I'm saying to have the institution of Gilei is one of the sort of the... They know if they don't need to have a marriage institution.
They have to have something, but it's a deal. Business.
Like beer, like we have?
Hmm?
Which you kind of beer, like just we have?
So this is a big shaila in the Rambam and the Minchas Chinuch, like how do you make a kinyan? The Pashtus is it's a deal, business. Like, we'll do this together. It could be very, but I don't mean to litvicize it. It could be a very beautiful, romantic thing. But I'm just saying that it's a different gedder than a Jew marrying a Jew. This is the problem with intermarriage. The problem with intermarriage is no Shechina. That's the whole problem. Which pasuk says that there's no intermarriage. The problem is that there's no Shechina, and then it's so hard to build the Shechina into a makom where you don't have the kedusha. So here we said in the Tomer Devorah, we said Kodim Tefillah, Oimei Beveis HaKnesses Piv Makor Nevea Tefillah. Remember we were talking about that you get up at Chatzos. We learned all about what happens, how the different hours of the day relate to different spheros. You get up at Chatzos, then Alos HaShachar you go to Shul. Ring a bell? Alos HaShachar you go to Shul, and Alos HaShachar, and then you daven. And we talked about Matoivu Alecha Yaakov Mishkenosecha Yisrael, and Vani Roiv Chastecha Avoi Veisecha. Right, that's what we spoke about. And then you start davening. So he says, we learned the last time we learned, we said, Kodim Tefillah Oimei Beveis HaKnesses Piv Makar Nevea Tefillah V'yichud Yisoid Makar HaBe'er Niftach Be'er Shehu Beis HaKnesses U'Mesakin Shechina B'chol Yecholos Kavanasai B'Tfilasai. Bottom line is, you come to Shul, Midas HaYisoid. Well, Yisoid, he says, V'yichud Yisoid. Maza Yisod. Yisod is where the ladder hits the ground. It didn't yet permeate, but it's there, right? So that's Midas HaYisod. The Shemayim has now connected to the Aretz. That's Midas HaYisod. That's where the Shemayim Aretz connect. It's so interesting. The Yisod is the bris. Midas HaYisod is the bris. So this is where the Shechina starts to happen. By ish v'isha, dafka by the bris, because that's the intimacy. That's what makes your wife different than every other woman. The intimacy. So that's gufa the makom of the Shechina. That's al korachach. That's the makom of the Shechina. Otherwise, you have Shechina with some other woman. And the problem with anything extramarital besides for your chayv misa, No, but besides for all that, you're not only having Shechina, but you're being masalik the Shechina. Like the whole thing is so like retarded. It's like so wrong. It's like taking something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created for a certain reason, and abusing it for some completely personal, selfish reason. And it's not. Not only does it take out the kedusha, but it actually pushes the Shechina away from the whole Klal Yisrael. The whole Klal Yisrael, not just from your house, from the whole Klal Yisrael.
Is that why the woman is chayv sin of the man? Because technically it's the shchina of the woman.
Because a man could have more than one wife.
So he can have without.
Yeah, the more Shechina.
Oh, nice. That's also a bigger code. Be careful.
Yeah, I don't know what this whole recording thing will Maybe have more coffee before. So that's the Beis HaKnesses. Now, at the Beis HaKnesses, u'mesakein shchina b'chol yecholos kavnasei b'tfilasei. So just keep in mind that when you come to Beis HaKnesses at Alois HaShachar and Vani B'Rav Chastecha V'Veisecha, what's the end of the pasuk? V'yirosecha. So that hishtachavoya, which I explained a couple of weeks ago, the hishtachavoya means that I lower my head to nobody but Hashem, meaning that I am, Yesodus, that the pshat in bowing down, whether it's in Shemona Esrei or Lahabdil Ta'avodah Zarah, is that I'm mevatel myself to you, which is why we bow down to no one or nothing, except Hashem. If I'm mevatel myself to you, my head always stays on top of my body. If I'm taking that which is my essence, the highest part of me, and I lower it, so then I'm mevatel myself, and you got to make sure you're mevatel yourself to the wrong thing, because mevatel yourself means that this is my purpose, this is my tachlis. So if you're standing there salami baloney, just bowing down to Avodah Zarah, you're mixing up your whole heart. But if you come into a Beis HaKnesses, eshtachava, that's already a different thing. So what I'm proclaiming is my tachlis in this world is ultimate. Whatever I do during the day, whatever happens, my tachlis in the world, Beis HaKnesses, is to be part of Hashem's plan and being Mashra Shechina b'Yisrael. I bow to you. I bow to you. I'm willing to be mevatel myself. We learned before, and the Arizal says it even stronger, that your bows, like of Baruch Hu es Hashem Avarech, especially if you're mechaven. So what happens is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, at the moment of saying Baruch Hashem Avarech Le'olam V'ed and lowering your head, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes over your whole day b'vracha. Okay, I'm driving. Meaning, like, once I submit myself and subject myself to the Shechina, so Kadosh Baruch Hu takes over, and okay, you're one of my men, I took care of you. Now, here's what's interesting. I mean, that was interesting too, but here's what stays interesting. Yotzei misham, this is where we're holding, you leave the shul, we leave shul. Where'd you go? Yotzei misham, where'd you go? Work, breakfast, where'd you go? Yotzei misham, bagel time with the guys. So Yotzei misham, oile beside haTorah. First stop, oile beside haTorah. Meaning, once we were maskasher with the side haTefillah, and we're finished with that, now we have to be maskasher with the side haTorah. Different thing. Beis Knesses is one thing. Beis Medrash is another thing. Tefillah is one thing. Torah is another thing. Tefillah is when we're going and talking to Hashem, and Torah is where Hashem's talking to us. Malach Elikim, Oilim v'Yardim boy. First Oilim, then Yardim. The Oilim is Tefillah, I'm davening, changing the world. And Yardim is Hashem talking to us. Nubachin. So Oilam v'Yardim. There's an up-down here going, a bidirectional movement happening here. So I'm masakin the Shechina in the place of Tefillah. And Yotzei Misham, Oile, means you are Ola, you're going to have your Aliyah, you go up one, beside HaTorah.
It doesn't have to be immediate, though.
Does Rebbe's text say Besod Torah?
My text does say beside HaTorah. Yotzei Misham, Oile beside HaTorah. Why? What does it
It
say?
says Besod Midas Hayoy.
No.
That's the next one.
Are we on the next one? Oh, sorry.
Okay, we say the same thing. Yeah, you're one line ahead, as usual. Yotzei Misham, Oile beside HaTorah. Remember the famous Gemara Brachos Samach Daled, Amar Rab Levi, Yoyse mi beis hakneses v'nichnas lebeis hamedrash v'oisik b'Torah zoicha u'makabel pnei hashchina. Zocha u'makabel pnei hashchina. So you're going from shul to beis medrash, and you're zoicha u'makabel pnei hashchina. Halavai, we should be able to understand what's the pnei hashchina. The Shechina seems to have a lot of different body parts, kivyachol. But one of them is Pnei Hashchina. But this is the Gemara. It's a Gemara Brachos. This is what he's echoing, I think. The Yotze Misham Oile B'Soid HaTorah U'Miskasher Ba B'Soid Midas Yain. Midas Yain means it's daytime now. It's not nighttime.
So technically, they say should learn Torah after the Tefillah.
You should learn Torah.
Immediately after the Tefillah.
Yeah, the Shulchan Aruch says that you should learn Torah even right in the Beis HaKnesses. She'elech Michael Chai. But that's one thing. But I'm talking about what he's talking about. It's a different nekuda that look, it's alos hashachar. You know, it's netzachami. You don't have to go to work yet. So what you do is go straight to the. And in my Rebbe said, I mentioned this in the Shabbos Hagadol drasha, that the European system of the good Balabatim was that they got up alois, they daven in nets, and they learned till 10, everybody, and then you opened up your store. I don't have a luxury necessarily now, but until 10. And he pointed out, it comes out that if you count the hour, and then at night, again, there was Seder Laila, which Baruch Hashem, in this Beis Medrash, most people do have a strong storm, but he made a cheshbon and they learned very seriously. You know, the Balavatim learned very seriously because they realized that they don't have a whole day to learn. So he said, but if you make a cheshbon, that's more hours than a koilel guy learns. I mean, in other words, you talk about Seder Rishon and Seder Sheni and night Seder with taking care of kids. Like there's more hours in the day and intense hours in the Balabas world. I mean, Scheinberg's Zatzal said it to give musar to the cold people, but the Metzias, I'm just saying the Metzias is that there's more and more intensity in the learning, and that's what needs to be done. So, but now you're miskasher besoid yoim, midas yoim. Soid midas yoim means, what's yoim in the midas? Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. So yom is. So you would think maybe it's Chesed. Yom is called Tiferes. Kabbalah Yom is called Tiferes. We'll get back to that. Umiskasher ima kol hayoim at shoyz hamincha shemiskasher begvur. Remember, you're going up, not down. In other words, we started with Malchus. Now we went to Midas HaYisoid, and if you take the straight line up the Spheros, someday when we learn Tomer Devorah next time, we need to put a chart of the spheres here, but you have Keser, and then Chesed Gvur on the sides, right? Tiferes, let's talk about the straight line. Netzach Hoy. Next thing is Yisoid, Malchus. So what you really have, let's call it the spinal cord of the spheros, is Malchus, Yisoid, Tiferes, Keser. Those, so when we're talking sort of Yisoid, it's like the Arizal says at the beginning of the Sefer Kavanas, we're talking about the essence of the spheres. You can just go up the middle, and therefore a lot of times you find that that these things are somewhat skipped. In other words, so what you're working here is we went through Malchus. We spoke about Malchus, Chatzos Halayla. We spoke about Yisoid, and now for Shachris, that's Yisoid. Beis HaKnesses is Yisoid, and the Beis HaMedrash, you're going to the Beis HaMedrash, that's Midas HaTiferes, Manyan, and then Mincha, you start to spread. So Mincha is Gevura, because the sun starts going down, so that's the Midah of Gevura, and Marav is Marav. So then we have also like Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Just there's a lot of things here to keep in mind, but I don't want to talk about all of them because then we'll have this usual superficial understanding instead of understanding one thing well. So you stay in the Beis Medrash till Zman Mincha. His recommendation is that's the Indian of Mincha Gedola, so you can make a living. And all of the Gemaras, by the way, of davening mincha on the job, seichers hapoilim, all connected. I'm running out of time, and I will. In the pirush that I have on the bottom, he brings from the Ramak in a different sefer. It's just fascinating. Shechina tata mitzuya bebeis hakneses. Shechina el yoina mitzuya bebeis hamedrash. So it's a zayar. Did you know there was two Shechinas there? Sophisticated stuff. In the Shechina Gufa, there's two Chalakim. There's Shechina Ilah and Shechina Tata. In the Shechina Gufa. So, we're not talking about in Shemayim now. We're talking about in the Aretz, there's Shechina Ilah and Shechina Tata. Shechina Ilah, Shechina Tata is in the Beis HaKnesses. Shechina Ilah is in the Beis HaMedrash. Remember I said that there's a difference between Tefillah and Torah. Tefillah is going up from a low place, coming from us. We're asking Hashem. It's Shechina Tata. Torah is coming from a high place to a low place. Ein mayim ela Torah. Like water goes down, Torah goes down. Right? Tizal, Katal Imrasi. That's the Shechina Ilah. So again, remember, Shechina Ilah is up, but it's going down. Or Shechina Tata is down, but it's going up. So you have two Shechinas. My nafkamina. That's the two Shechinas. So says the Ramak. That Aveira Mechabe Mitzvah Tefillah. Aveira Mechabe Mitzvah Tefillah. Amnam ein Aveira Mechabe Torah. Shehi Hashchina El Yoina Hashera El Yisrael Mitzad HaTorah. Ba'oiskim ba. To beginehem Loizaza Shechina Yisrael Eina Mistalek as Klal. Meaning the Shechina Tata Tefillah Beis HaKnesses. It's us creating the Shechina, if you will. I mean, Hashem is the Shechina, but we're creating an atmosphere for the Shechina. We build the Beis HaKnesses. We daven. Stuff we do. Let's call it Isarusa de Losata to make it easier. Right? The stuff we do. Shechina Tata. Okay, if we do it, but we did an Aveira. Sinas Shechina. Lashon Hara. We lent somebody money beribis. We robbed somebody yesterday. And now you're coming to Shul after you robbed somebody yesterday, so you think you're creating Shechina Tata, but you're creating no Shechina at all. The Shechina can't be Shoira. The Shechina Tata of Tefillah can't be Shoira if it's coming with a Pagam of an Avera. Avera Doicha Shechina. It's Mistavra. If Hashem's created the Shechina, He's created the Shechina. But if we're creating the Shechina, it's like bad marriage, a marriage where they're not keeping Torah, a marriage with a non-Jew. It's not only, it's doicha the Shechina, because that's Shechina Tata. When a person walks into the chuppah, that's Shechina Tata. And Shechina Tata is like a Beis HaKnesses, Beis HaMikdash even. So the Beis HaMikdash is all Shechina Tata. And if there's an Aveira, you've messed up. What happens if you evaporate
Foundation.
If you evaporate pollution, you get acid rain. You're ruining the whole world. In the cycle of things, you're ruining the whole world. Beruchnius and begashmius. So that's the Shechina Tata. On the other hand, Shechina Ilah is Torah. And when it comes to Torah, that's Kadosh Baruch Hu's department. He's talking to us. So when you're talking about Shechina Ilah, Loizaza Shechina Yisrael. There's nothing that we can do that can ruin that Shechina except for not learn Torah. So this is the thing that the Ramak is saying. Go from the Beis HaKnesses to the Beis HaMedrash. Go from Shechina Tata to Shechina Ilah. And Nachmer, even if you failed in the Shechina Tata department, which we should not do, if you go to the Shechina law department, you can't fail. Meaning, if you're actually learning, you're accessing a Shechina which Lo Zaza Mi Yisrael. Can't leave. I mean, even Klal Yisrael was building an egel at the bottom of the mountain. Moshe Rabbeinu is still talking to Hashem on top of the mountain. Shechina law, Shechina Tata. The Shechina Tata was mistalik for Mi Yisrael. No Shechina in the Machna. Kol Anois. But the Shechina Ilah was Moshe Rabbeinu speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Lo Zaza Mi Yisrael. What was going on top of the mountain? Torah. What was going on at the bottom of the mountain? Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah. Lowering the head to the wrong deity. Avodah Zarah is the opposite of Tefillah. Hafuch. Tefillah is where I'm creating Shechina Tata, and Avodah Zarah is where I'm using the same koach of Tefillah, and I'm creating garbage. I'm being masalik to Shechina, like a marriage which has no Shechina to it. So you have here. So I wanted to go further. We'll go further Sunday, Mir Hashem. But this is the yisoid that we have here. Let me just read it again, so we leave off on the right on this note. Shechina Tata Metzuya Bebeis HaKnesses. Shechina Elyoina Metzuya Bebeis HaMedrash. Muvan? Vehatam Shashchina Malchus Ikra Beis Tefillah. Starting from the bottom up, you're talking about Tefillah. Pamim hi misyachedes b'tefillah, pamim eina misyachedes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. It doesn't mean sometimes God listens to your prayers and sometimes He doesn't. Always listens. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Kidipirashti aveira mechabe mitzvah. If a person comes in with an aveira, comes to shul with an aveira, and he didn't do tshuva, that's why it's good to do tshuva before you go to sleep at night. You wake up with a fresh start, so you come in with an aveira biyadai, sharetz biyadai. So now you're pushing away any shechina that you could have created. You come to the shul, you'd be tahar. Behind mitzvah's tefillah, that's what the mitzvah of tefillah is, to create shechina tata. Amnam ein aveira mechabe Torah. This is not that's true with the shechina tata. When it comes to the Shechina Allah, even if you come in with an Aveira, Ein Aveira Mechabe Torah. Shehi Shechina El Yoina Ashar El Yisrael is a special Shechina, think Anoni HaKavod. Mitzad HaTorah, Ba'oiskim Ba, this comes from Torah, and learning it, the beginnehain, Leizaza Shechina Mi Yisrael, Eina Mistalekes Klal. Lesson of the Ramak, not in Tomer Devorah, but in the Rabbi Yaacov. So let's start with that, and Mir Hashem Sunday deeper as to what this is. But just to know that there's Shechina. This is what we learned. There's Shechina, which is the Iker of this world, only in this world, and in Shechina Gufa, there's Shechina El Yarna and Shechina Tata, which we can divide up like the two sides of the ladder, coming up, going down, going up, going down. And and the way it manifests itself is in Beis HaKnesses, Beis HaMedrash, because Beis HaKnesses, Beis HaMedrash is Tefillah and Torah.
Is that why people go to the mikveh early in the morning?
Yes. Yes. Or do tshuva.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
This is
What?
You put it down to the middle. Basically, it's a much more stable thing. You just like go to down there. No?
Beis HaMikdash?
Base and meters.
Go down to Beis HaMedrash. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yosef Lois Baalti.
Usually cannot basically have both base and base and meters. Over there, all those places are called base and meters.
What is this?
Maybe it's, you just have to write the base and base and meters. But
Well,
there's
you're
no
right,
place where we
here
can
you do
have both.
both. Here you do both.
Somehow we have to make a name. The name. What's the name of the place? Base and meters would make it. Base and and somehow.
According to that chart, by the way, for $500,000, you could decide the name. So if you want to call it Beis Medrash, we can. You don't know, but there's a big diyun here in the architect's office whether this should be a shul with pews or a shul with tables.
Table.
You like tables. The shaila is really, is it Beis HaKnesses or is it a Beis Medrash?
It's a totally different field.
Malkum Tefillah or is it a Malkum Torah?
Yeah, it's an important
different
question.
field because you're nostalgic to your yeshiva days.
Yeah.
That's why it's a different field. But I think, with respect, but, because I know everybody they want to get back into that womb of the of yeshiva. It's not a yeshiva. You're going out to work. People are it's a much more mature palette over here, in my opinion. But is it Beis HaKnesses or is it Beis Medrash? What is the, even though halachically you build on a t'nai, and all kinds of things. But look, ba'etzim, is it a makom tefillah, makom? So, my thinking is that, the first 10 rows should be pews and the last 10 rows should be tables. So, it's chatzi lachem, chatzi lashem.
It can be the same place both the Beis HaKnesses. It doesn't sound.
It doesn't sound like you can, but it's convenient. It doesn't sound like you can't either. Why can't you just move from? But maybe you should change places. Maybe change places. But the Gemara says in Brachos that I think it was Rabbi Yossi, he was makbid to only daven where he learned. Malkum Tefillah Sham Teirina. He was makbid to, like, he had such a akbad, exactly what you're saying. He wanted to be mamtik the dinim.
I thought it was the other way around. He was makbid to daven in the place where he learned. Doesn't necessarily mean that he couldn't have learned other places also.
Could have learned to other places, but he wanted to daven where
That's
he
what
learned.
people always say, that you have to daven.
You want to, like Yaakov Avinu, the same dream, same ladder, or the same ladder. It's so the ladder, Lanias Daiti, is so seminal. When you go through the Mefarshim on Chumash, they make it sound like every other page of Chumash. The Ramban is never. It's if you start looking at it carefully, it's so seminal because it's the entire relationship between Shamayim and Aretz.
The ladder itself starts on the ground, it goes up.
Mutzav arts.
I think this is the reason why he went for 14 years to learn Torah. It was after the ladder.
After the ladder.
To revise all these
The first appearance
Torah
of the
before. The people should
Have
look
nothing
for
but
reason.
dreams. Love it.
Because learning Torah all those years and then compared to 14 years. It's because he saw this.
I mean, he learned Torah first, you think?
He learned Torah in his home of Ramat Bet Shemesh, and then he went to Haran. Somehow he went for 14 years.
I think he davened first in the Beis Aviv, and then he went to Shem Be'aver. Other way, he went from Tefillah to Torah.
Yeah, but I mean, usually people, let's say, Monsey asked why he went to another 14 years to learn Torah after he had so many years to learn.
Oh, so his answer.
Yeah, the answer was it was after the letter.
Right.
Usually people think
Right,
it was
right.
other way.
Right.
Sure.